skepticism is at the root of all scientific inquiry. It gives birth to the scientific method. Scientific method, or even the form of it that's empirical, searching for empirical data, it follows a logical progression. That's scientific method. Well, you first have to doubt something and question it and be skeptical. So that goes for science being skeptical of its own self before it gets taken over by tyrannical forces from within. You see, in every industry, even knowledge as an industry and a business, you have forces that want to control it from within. And we can't have that. We can't have that. I can't have that. No, I can't have that. I will never allow that. And here I'm going to check out earth science a little bit more deeply, geo-sciences. And I was examining satellite pictures, mapping, graphical stuff. There's just such a wealth of it now with all the instrumentation we have and the measuring and the computerization of all this stuff. And by the way, I should have done this as the Dirty Wizard, but I'm just not into it right now, playing that character. The Dirty Wizard is back with a vengeance. Check out all the shorelines of the continents everywhere. Check out all of them. And you'll see the majority, not all of them, but the majority have canyons. Tons and tons of canyons. And I've actually heard from scientific circles, scientific establishment theory, proclaiming that these can be created by the water that comes out of the rivers, just plunges into the ocean and then continues to go like water within water, carving these canyons and moving all this debris along. And that's enough erosion to create these gigantic canyons. I mean, like the Grand Canyon, or even more extreme. So, I mean, if that's not laughable, I don't know what is. So let's talk about the it's called a shelf. It's called a continental shelf, because what they show as the continent, it's crust, as opposed to mantle and core of the earth, deeper inner core that they theorize. We're not even going to talk about internal here. I'm just talking about surface features tonight. And it is night in my part of the world. So in the places where you don't see these canyons, there's been a lot of instability. It's just flowed over with volcanic material, or it's so much silt, debris that comes out. These things that form deltas. For example, you see at the end of the Mississippi, it's draining out such a huge area, and the amount of solid material that can come out and settle at the end of that river, it just piles up and piles up. So it's actually filled in its own original canyons. If you were to remove all that, you would get down to harder rock and bedrock um, underneath the surface of the Gulf of Mexico, and it would be there. Although there's a lot of activity going on in there, in that particular area. But like I said, that's the exception to the rule, because the rule that I found, when you observe under the water, these subterranean canyons are plentiful. Now, I'll give you one great example, is that where the Hudson River comes out and New York City is sitting at that mouth, and there's a bay there. It's New York Bay. It's a harbor, and that river just comes out, and what actually happens is the water just scatters. The water just has an ebb and a flow, and in fact, that river is an estuary. It flows back and forth, which is another thing that tells you that when it switches its flow, it's slowing down a whole lot, and there's just no way it's going to consistently dig out a canyon underneath hundreds and thousands of feet of water and water pressure. See? Now, I'm just explaining to you, by using a skeptical mind, skeptical inquiry. And I'm saying to myself, how does this get here? How does this get here? At the end of the mouth of the Hudson, if you follow it, the topography that's under the Atlantic, you will find a humongous canyon. They named it Hudson Canyon. It is hundreds of miles out across the shelf until it drops off into the deeper part of the ocean. It's way out in there, the basin. And you can see also where it, kind of ends. And that's new material. That's from the Atlantic Rift Zone. That's all very young strata there. That's up on the top. So this surface of the Earth was created only several millions of years ago. Now, I mean, no more than 200 or 220 million thereabouts. So you think about that. What, if they're calculating the amount of years right, correctly, accurately. It's not even that. You don't even have to do that. You just make it relative to all the other stuff that they're dating. That's 1 billion years or 2 billion years. On the continent up toward Canada, up beyond that into Toronto and up toward Hudson Bay, but all around there, they call that the Canadian Shield. And that's a craton. A craton is like the central chunk of the continents, and those are billions of years of age that they say. So even if that number is not correct, and even if the number of the sea floor at the end of the Hudson Canyon is not correct, still you make it relative. 220 million versus however many billion. So you just form a ratio. It's the ratio that's important to consider. The ratio, the comparison. because that's even more accurate. That's even more telling. So you analyze all these ratios and say, So this actually, that's a whole other line of inquiry to find out certain things. But the main thing that I'm talking about tonight is how these canyons were formed. Hold on, I'm going to wrap up this thought. I have a little munchkin over here from the land of Oz. No, it's not a munchkin. It's what are you? What are you?
Stop working.
I have to work. I'm always, see, he knows I'm always working.
Working.
I read, I study, I meditate, I ponder on these things. What?
You can't do it.
He doesn't want to yet, but hold on, I'm going to finish. And excuse me for the interruption. I hope that you understand the human family and you have some patience for that. In fact, you see me and say, wow, this guy has to have a lot of patience. Nothing's hurting you. You're just trying to distract me. Just be quiet for 2 minutes. The canyon was formed many hundreds of thousands and, no, actually millions of years ago. Must have been millions of years ago. And what happened was the amount of water on the face of the earth. This is totally rude of you, man. I gave you a chance to say what you wanted to say. No, you're being rude right now. No, listen, I'm dealing with a Leo here. This kid is a Leo. And I'm not a Leo. But I do have Leo characteristics, so I understand. Do you see this? This is like enough to drive anybody crazy. I'm trying to finish my point here. The world has, that's it, I'm taking it physically, just like a police officer does, just for a moment. Hold on a second. The amount of water on the face of the earth has completely increased since then, and that's why it's flooded upriver of all the rivers around the continents. All the rivers that have been flowing for so many millions of years into the space between the continents, which I'm not even going to call them oceans, because they were not always oceans. They were just spaces where the water from the rivers would pool up. And I don't even think that they were always salty. I think that they might have just been some sort of silt-filled waters. But this, with the salt and everything, and the huge amount of water that's on the surface of the earth now, this is new. This is new. There was never this much water, and it's even said that in the Devonian and the Cambrian, these periods, many eons ago, were occupied with shallow seas. They didn't have the deep 5-6 mile deep oceans in the wide Pacific. That didn't exist. Uh-oh, wait a second. We have to stop now because we're getting into the expanding Earth theory. But I just wanted you to take a look at that. It's amazing when you take a look, even on Google Earth or wherever you can, there's a lot of books about it. Check out these subterranean river canyons and realize that they all were created, and then suddenly the Earth was flooded, creating what we have now as the humongous oceans that were never here before. Thanks for listening to this fascinating subject, and I hope it inspires you to check it out yourself.